You are tuned in to that praisey station, praise.fm, where we get our praise on, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Hello, everybody. It's that time of the week with your girl, Drea. Y'all know how we do it. I'm so excited to have you guys come in to the Momemtum Shift. Come on in. Share. Because I am so excited that it's Tuesday night. Y'all, it's been a long day. Y'all just don't know. It's only Tuesday, but it feels like it is Friday all over again. Y'all just don't know because, wow, been in group all day today. You guys know I do therapy for a living and I do IOP. You that don't know what that is, that's intensive outpatient treatment. Yeah. 3-hour segments of group It takes a special kind of dedication to commit to 3 hours of group. So I have to give it up for my clients because they sign up for this. This is not mandatory. They volunteer themselves to sit in group for 3 hours a day, 3 times a week. But that's what you do when you want change in your life. So I'm just excited. It's Tuesday going on Saturday, because after double group on Tuesdays, I do it back to back, 6 hours of talking, and then come on here and do the Momemtum Shift. Yeah, I need this. If you need a shift in your life, you know someone who needs a shift, tell them about the Momemtum Shift. You're on with Dr. Drea, whatever you want to call me. It's good. I'm excited to be here. Praise.fm radio, where Dr. Lady Ray is making it happen. She is producing the most phenomenal shows in radio land. See, isn't it a blessing? You can have a guest anywhere in the world. You can be in one state, they can be in 20 states over, they can be in another country, they can be wherever, and we can come and sit and collaborate. For those who have a problem with the internet, y'all, I bet during COVID, y'all were thankful for that internet because y'all got to work from home. Companies found out they couldn't make excuses about teleworking anymore because they had to. So just like we had to shift, things happen in our lives where we need to shift. So if you know someone who needs to shift in their lives, tell them to come on into the Momemtum Shift. Every week we have all kinds of powerful guests. If you are, let me think, maybe you can sing. You've been burning to cut that CD, you know, that music, whatever it is, you think you got that voice, you got them pipes. I'm telling you, you want to check Dr. Lady Rain out because she's making it happen, even if you can sing. Do your CD. Watch the commercials. It's flowing. Share it. If you know someone an independent artist, they want to make things happen, I'm telling y'all. Y'all don't believe me. I can tell. I can feel y'all. So, Ronnie. Oh, Lord. She just walked in the door and need to grab some food and watch. Ronnie and her food. Share. Get the word out. I've got Dr. D all the way from Valdosta, Georgia. Y'all been to Valdosta? I lived there for 9.5 years. If you ever been to Valdosta, I'll tell you right now, you haven't had a meal unless collard greens is on the menu. That's the only place you go to a buffet and there's gonna be collard greens at the buffet. Every meal, there's collard greens. I'm telling y'all, okay. They looking at me. Ronnie, get you some collard greens. She lived in Mississippi. She tells the story about when she lived in Mississippi and how she learned all this good Southern cooking. I'll let her next time she on, because all she talks about is food. That's all Ronnie talks about. Food. So now, Dr. D, let's see what we're talking about. Mental health, me, and Dr. D. I think that's how I said that. Anyway, Dr. D, introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about you, what you do, what your expertise is, why you're here, why are we talking about mental health? Do we need mental health? Everybody needs mental health. Help us out. Dr. D.
Hey, I'm excited to be back again. It feels like it's been forever since I've been here, probably because of COVID and the pandemic. I'm excited to be back. I thought you had forgot about me for a while. I was like, the ladies out there in Arizona ain't called me in a while, but that's okay.
We had lots going on here in Arizona.
I believe it.
Believe me, we was trying to graduate, write dissertations, do all kinds of stuff. That we didn't forget.
Oh no, and congratulations. I'm so proud for you. And hey, sky's the limit.
Mm-hmm. Folks who like to go to school and professional students, they can have that.
I was done after the PhD. D is done. Yeah.
Doc D is done. And you a social worker like me turned licensed professional counselor, right?
Well,
You
I
start off in social work?
started off in substance abuse actually.
Oh, got it.
So, but I had a BSW. So
Okay.
technically, yes, I started off in social work, but more the substance abuse portion of it. So I started off in substance abuse, and by the time I hit my graduate program, I was mental health and substance abuse, and so just have been in all plethoras of mental health. I don't know if it was all willingly or if I just kind of landed there and said, let me see how this is going to go. Because straight out of grad school, I actually worked at a intermediate care facility for MR clients. So that was totally not in my plans, but I was there for 6.5 years, and then started to do contract work back in the mental health field. So that's how I kind of gravitated back into the field, and been back in mental health ever since then. Haven't really missed a beat, but I enjoy all things mental health. Pretty much like you said, Dr. Demetria Hill Kennedy, a licensed professional counselor, been in the field over 25 years. Do mental health, trauma, crisis. My niche is actually African American teenagers and women. However, I do provide services for couples and marriages. That's one of my niches as well. And when I'm not in the actual office, I'm a mobile crisis therapist. So it's never a dull day as far as mental health is, unless I'm off. And some days I'm still not off, even though I'm on neither clock, because as you know, mental health never sleeps. So I'm just excited to be here. And as you say, it's been a long week, but not this week for me. Maybe this week for you. Last week, I was just like, what in the world is going on? Now, yesterday, Monday was truly Monday-ing, but I survived. So I'm good today. So we can talk about whatever. I'm full of energy.
Well, since you mentioned, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about what drew you to the social work field in the first place, because I know, like myself, I actually had no intentions on being a social worker, ever. To be honest with you, I had no intentions. What happened for me is I had gone to college initially at Southern University when I graduated from high school, and I wanted to become an engineer. I went from being an engineer to, all chasing the money. You like, oh, I want to do this, because I had gone to a magnet school, and most of the people that I went to school with, we were looking in the fields such as engineering, what we call STEM education now. But that's was kind of the direction you went, either into nursing or either medical, attorney, or engineering. Because I went to an A&M college, an A&M university. So most of the people there, that's kind of what you went to school for. So a lot of us were pursuing those type of careers. But what I found that I kept changing my major. I couldn't really decide what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so, how you will run from everything except that very thing you should be doing. Because in my mind, all I knew as far as social work was concerned, because one of my first cousin actually had always wanted to be one. And she went to Dillard and became a social worker. She was several years older than me. So I would look up to her. She's my big cousin. And how we always have those big cousins that we look up to. She spoke French, and she did all of those things that I wanted to do. But when I got to college, I discovered, man, I don't know who I am. I don't really want to do this. I don't really know what I want to do. So I joined the military, and then we got stationed at Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, and it was time to go back to school. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up. I had every major you could think of. But what ended up happening was I kept getting drawn back to the helping fields. and I vacillated between nursing and psychology, different sociology, but it was the sociology that grabbed me, those classes and the criminal justice stuff. So I originally wanted to be a probation officer. That's what I thought I was going, the direction I was going into. And that social work program started. And my professors, who were all marriage and family therapists, and a few social workers, but mostly, because in our state, there wasn't very many places you could get a master's in social work. So I was in that inaugural class, the first class at Valdosta State. That's how it all happened for me, with no intentions of ever doing that child protective services. Because, people graduate from college and the job you could get, you either taught school or you worked at DFACS.
Right.
I didn't want to do that. So, because in my mind, that's what I thought all social workers did. They were doing, in going in people's homes, pulling their kids out, or working with families in that regard. But it was throughout my education that I found out that there was a whole lot more to professional social work. And that's how I ended up getting into it. So I always ask people, like, what drew you to it? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Or did you always find that because my mom said, I've been a social worker my whole life. She said every child in the neighborhood that had drama at home, I was a magnet to. And I was trying to help them solve their problems. She said, I've been doing that as long as she could remember. So what drew you to the field? Or did it find you?
Combination of both, actually, because I actually went to college as a business major.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, I didn't decide to go to college until my senior year of high school, and I had no intentions on where I was going. I know I didn't want to go to Valdosta State because that was too close to home. Didn't want to go too far because, single mom, car is not the best. Like, she got to be able to get to me if something's going on. So I actually attended Fort Valley State University.
Wow.
Far enough away, but close enough if something happened. And so my best friend and my childhood good friend, they both attended Valdosta State. And then one of my other friends, she attended Albany State. So we were all separated. So we had to, navigate these waters. I think they already had majors, but like I said, I went in as a business major and failed every business class there was.
I left that part out. That's why.
Yeah, simply because I was uninterested in what they were saying, and pretty much it sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher when they was talking. So yeah, it was easy for me to get those F's in, and I, beat back then. The grades were mailed home, so you get home before before the mailman delivers, so the parent don't see that you have an F. And so I was like, oh, this is not going to work. I knew that I didn't want to come back home. So I was like, I got to find something that I can pass and maneuver and be good at. And so in the process, I've always been the fixer, always trying to save the underdog. So pretty much what led me to the substance abuse, because addiction runs on both sides of my family. And so in my quest to find out in particular why my dad, because my dad's an addict, or was an addict, he's a recovering addict, let me put it that way. I was trying to figure out why would he choose drugs over me. I don't understand this. You got to help me make sense of this. So let me go to these AA classes. Let me go to this internship so I can get some understanding and see, how this thing works. And so as soon as I started to do my practicum in the substance abuse field, I was immediately drawn. So I was locked and loaded for the most part. But interestingly enough, I still had not chosen social work as my major. So I had 3 majors at that point. I had social work, education, and psychology. Because I'm like, okay, I know I can get a job as a teacher. Do I really want to pick brains, or do I want to pick up people's kids? Because as you said, defects. Child Protective
Yep.
Services. That was what we knew at that point in time. So I was like, well, I don't like kids enough to be around them 8 hours a day. And I don't want to pick brains all day. So that's how I narrowed it down to social work. So that's how I actually got in the social work field. And then when I completed my graduate program, the internship, one of the internships that I had to do was at a mental health, community mental health center in Macon, Georgia.
Mhm.
And those ladies were addicts that were trying to either get their children back or keep their children in the home. And so again, I was drawn into that yet again. So that kind of solidified, okay, I feel like I'm in the right area. But then at the very end, that year-long internship pretty much that you have to do, I ended up moving back home, and there was not strictly a substance abuse program. So that's how I landed in mental health. So I saw mental health clients during the day and did groups for substance abuse in the evening. So that's how I was able to do the dual dynamics piece to it.
Now, what's interesting about this whole conversation is you've been on the show prior to this. I want to say 2 times. Yeah, yes. 2 other times. We've never had this conversation. I didn't realize how our backgrounds were so congruent because my mother was a single parent, and my uncles were alcoholics, which drew my mom to that area. She's a nurse by trade, but she ended up doing substance abuse treatment. She started off working in an adolescent unit at the hospital in my hometown. And that was her start. And her quest was because she wanted to understand the whole thing about addiction as well. And that kind of drew me because I lived in my grandmother's house where my uncle was an alcoholic. And he would come home drunk. And I mean, the dynamics, all the family dynamics and the codependency and all of those factors that went along. And like I said, if it's in your blood, there's some things I think that are just kind of innate, like you become that natural person that want to fix. You're a fixer. You want to fix that. And it generally comes from, the environment we were brought up in, the chaos. There's always one who wants to try to fix everything and everybody. And so I was kind of that child as well. And even though I didn't want to do it because, like I said, my mindset was such that everything was about child protective services, not knowing, because in our world, that's what social workers did. You didn't find too much about social workers that did anything other than that. And I got drawn into treatment. My first internship, like you're talking about, was actually doing prevention work at LODAP. And that's how I got involved with substance abuse. And Stan, I don't know if Stan is even still in Valdosta or not. He used to play professional basketball. I can't remember his last name right now, but he was he was an addict who was very famous in Valdosta, actually, in substance abuse. So he was very instrumental working with LODAC and was doing a lot of programs and whatnot. And so I learned a lot during that season. Him and Willis Lopez and different ones, they were instrumental in that area, teaching a lot. We was doing a lot of work with the school system, the different counties, Lowndes, Lanier County, different ones around, working with kids and even in the alternative schools, doing court diversion and different things. And that's kind of how I got pulled into it. But it's interesting hearing your background, how you got in it. And most people who are in it, we kind of get, it's kind of almost like you're selected for it. It finds you.
Most definitely, because some of the areas that I'm in now, I had no desire to be. I had no desire to work with women. I had no desire to work in the ministry portions of it. So everything that I said that I would never do is what I'm currently doing. And I was like, God, you have a sense of humor.
He's got jokes. Anytime you want to know what his plan is for your life, is to tell him what your plan, what you're not going to do. And you will do everything you said you're not going to do.
Exactly. because I get tickled every time. I was like, I didn't like women. All my friends were guys except for my 4 friends that I had from 4th grade forward. And so it was like, no, women keep up too much drama. I don't want to be bothered. Just leave me out of it. And then, in the most recent years is where I was like, okay, I see me in some of these people that I'm running away from. So if, I can be fixed, then I can assist them in fixing themselves as well. So, because when I first started the private practice, I was seeing kids more so because it was lucrative, because like I said, I had no desire to actually work with kids. And not that I disliked them, but it was like doing double duty. You fix the kid goes home back to the toxic environment.
Have the whole family.
Gotta start all over again the following. And then sometimes it would be so bad I'm driving around, because I didn't do services in office. We were outside. We would go, in the woods. We would go fishing. We would do horses and 4-wheelers. So we were always outside. And then when it was time to bring the kids home, the parents weren't home. So you stuck with kids, even though you've had them for hours. And so I was like, this is a bit much. And so I shifted and closed down the kids. And in that shift, I ended up at Valdosta State Prison. Yeah, that was an assignment.
Well, I don't know if you were there at the same time. Khalees's husband, actually, Artist, is going to be on in a couple weeks.
Okay.
And he was working I remember when he started working at the prison, not long after we met. Mm-hmm. I've known them forever. And he's worked in the prison system, and we would talk about all the time about those inmates. That was the thing. We were always talking about those inmates. And like when I tell you our lives are so congruent, I worked at the women's prison here in Phoenix.
Okay.
Doing a women's recovery program. One of my spiritual moms is on here, Pastor Deborah Bell. I learned a lot from her as well. She was at Project Camp. I don't know if it still exists. When I was at Lodex, she was at Project Camp.
I heard about Project Camp, but I never got a chance to see it or visit it, anything.
She was a counselor there, and I learned quite a bit from her. She would do it. She's a social worker by trade as well.
Okay.
But you learn quite a bit. Hey, Kim just hopped on. Hey, Sade, Carmen. Yeah, Carmen's funny. She just said that's how God does us. Never say you don't want to or don't like something, because that's exactly where he'll put you. That's really true.
Exactly.
The very thing you say you're not going to do, you may as well sign on to do it, because guess where your life is going.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you wrote your whole life plan when you said you weren't going to do it.
Right. I learned to stop saying what I would never do, and I just said, okay.
I remember when Kim switched from being an accountant to being a therapist. I was like, you don't want to do that. Trust me, you don't want to be a therapist. I said I would never go back to therapy ever again. And that was originally why I got my master's, to do therapy. I've done everything but do therapy, only to do therapy in ministry. And listening to Kim, she's like, Pastor Andrea, you should. You're already doing it. Thanks, Kim, for pulling me back in my life. Got me back doing therapy. But it is very rewarding, and it's exhausting at times too.
Mm-hmm.
It is that. It is exhausting. It can be, like I said, this is one of those weeks that it already feels like it's Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're like, oh gosh, I just wish it was Monday is over and then it's the weekend. But when you're doing what God tells you to do, somehow he makes a way. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've worked with kids, and now you're even doing couples. So I can't wait until we come back from the break, because I'm curious to know how you got pulled into that. I don't know. Lady Rain, are we ready to go to break? Or can we go now? Okay. Let's go to break, guys. I'm telling y'all, don't leave. In fact, I need y'all to share, because there's some people who needs to hear what Doc D is going to talk about, because our subject tonight is we're talking about mental health, me, and with Dr. D. She's like the premier therapist, y'all. She knows everything. Her and Kim, the two of them, they know everything. Anything you want to know, just ask Kim. Hey, Choice, I'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Have you ever wanted to host your own inspirational radio show? Have you been called to inspire and spread God's word? Please contact Alicia Rain for more info.
Are you the next great independent artist, but you're looking for a distribution opportunity? Well, sign with us at Praise.fm Music Distribution. Yes, the 2021 Stellar Award nominated Praise.fm can handle it all. We understand the narrow road leading to getting your music heard at the right time at the right place can be tough. So send your music and video files to fmpraise@gmail.com. That's fmprayz@gmail.com. Praise.fm Music Distribution, affiliated with Sony Music and the Orchard Distributors.
Hi, I'm Alma. Hi, and I'm Raquel. And we are the Fisher Girls.
Praise.fm Music is proud to introduce the new label artist, the Fisher Girls. Stay tuned as this Gospel Choice Award-winning gospel duo releases their new song, Narrow Way, on Sony Orchard Music Distribution. Praise FM Music, the Fisher Girls. Praise.fm Music Distribution, affiliated with Sony Music and the Orchard Distributors.
We are back, you guys. Man, that was the quickest break I have ever seen. Did y'all blink your eyes? Because I think I blinked one time and we were back. We was having such good dialogue. I'm telling you, when you invite Doc D on, she is just a wealth of information. I am learning so much about her tonight. It's just funny how if you just take time to have a conversation with someone, you will find that you probably have more in common than you have that's not. You just having a conversation. It is amazing how our lives have paralleled each other. This woman, y'all, wait, let me I have to read this one out loud real quick. Carmen says she need to put out Carmen, I don't know what that means. Something about her music.
She's putting out an album.
I don't know, Carmen, you putting an album out. Oh, Pastor Deborah said, yeah, we was talking about therapy, about how when you're working with family, especially with families, it can be exhausting. She said, yes, it is very exhausting, but it is rewarding. If you'll know it's your calling, but when you can't help yourself, you can't help but to do it. Even though you don't want to, you don't want to be bothered. Yes, we therapists don't want to hear everybody's problems every day, all day. No. But when it's your gifting and your calling, somehow you find the energy to help people when they're struggling. Yeah, we get frustrated because we're human and we get tired, true. But when it's an anointing on your life, you figure out how to make it work. So Doc D has done everything you could think of. She's been at that prison. God blessed her. Oh, Carmen was responding to the commercial break. I think maybe she planning on cutting a CD. I'm guessing. Go for it, Carmen. Huh? Well, whatever they do. Carmen, do your CD, do your download. What do they do, Dr. Rain? She in my ear, y'all. She won't come on this side of the camera. But she sure be talking and having us looking crazy while we talking back to her. And people like, what are they talking about? Yeah. Maybe that's how it. Oh, my girlfriend Lynette is on here too. She likes to be incognito, but she on here watching all the way from Atlanta. Well, she in a suburb out in the middle of the country, y'all. But she's watching. It's good to have you on, Lynette. I hope I didn't miss. Oh, Yvette, let me give a couple shout outs real quick. Ronnie, we know you on here. Hi, Yvette. Jataria Thomas. Yay.
Natalia is the wealth to the mental wealth center.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. And then we've got welcome to the Momemtum Shift. And Ronnie is an old favorite on here. She got her show, Food for Thought. All she talks about is food. Hi, Sade. My sister is on here. Sade has, oh Lord, not Dr. Lady Rain in the comments. You're all in the comments. You know, laughter is terribly, I mean, it really is good for your soul. We have to laugh. Run his remix is next. Yeah, I bet. I don't know if I want to hear that song, but I'm sure it's all about food. If Ronnie's involved, it's about food. Oh no. No, we're not going to get her started because she'll try to come in on my show and just appear out of nowhere. That's what Ronnie would do. But Doc D was talking about all them jobs she done had. That's one thing about social workers. We get tired and we'll stay somewhere for a while and then we're like, it's time for a change. So we will, because it's easy to get burned out and, you know, do all the things, because when you're helping and you're in this field of helping people, their problems can get to be much and you have to take a break. Doc D has all these lives. Y'all heard her mention earlier, and if you didn't, she actually works on, she does, what do you call it? Not triage. I just lost it.
Crisis.
Crisis. She does crisis work also. And she and her husband did a marital thing back in what, December, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what drew you to doing marriage ministry? Because that's what I'm going to call it, because that's what it is.
Well, see, what had happened was
that's usually what we say.
Yeah. I've had the certification for about maybe 3 or 4 years. You know how we get these certificates that we really don't do anything with. And so one day I put out a coupon, and I was like, get 6 sessions of couples coaching or marriage coaching at a discount. And so once I started doing the coaching for the couples, I realized that I really enjoyed it. Most people don't like couples work because of the dynamics, but I find it so intriguing and interesting because you have these very distinct personalities that have decided to merge together for one reason or another. Some of it is typically dysfunctional, but they, you know, most of them are trying to make it work. And so because they kind of kept coming, and I was like, okay, let's kind of make this a niche. So that's typically the only piece that I do with the life coaching part of what I do. Okay. And so with the certification, I also decided to become the facilitator, which means not the facilitator, the trainer, so that I can train people to work with these families and these couples, like church leaders, other therapists, you know, people who are educators that just like teaching. So they are community partners to be able to make marriages better as well. So I did, I think the first class was in November, and there were like
seeing that.
Yeah, maybe about 12, 15 participants somewhere in other states. I was like, okay, I like this piece too, but I prefer the interacting with the couples more so. And so my daughter's aunt is a pastor in Boston, Georgia, and she reached out and she was like, hey, can you and your husband do a conference, a marriage conference? I was like, hey, I'm all for it. Let me see if he's gonna participate. And I was, excited because he agreed. He's one of those shadow workers. He likes to do everything behind the scene, but he'll surface just to make a joke, and then he's back out.
Like
And
my
so,
husband does when he interrupts my show because he moves his car and then my thing moves over to when he pulls his car up on the side. And I'm like, why can't nobody hear me? And I'm talking on Facebook because my phone has rolled to his car and he thinks it's the funniest thing ever. Because I get caught like this every time he does it. Every time during my show. Well, you know what? He must have thought about it tonight because he went on and moved his car before I started. Thank God. Because I'm just moving my mouth and people are like, why she got technical issues every week? I don't. I have husband issues every week. That's what I have. So are you finding this report? Well, you and your friend Anthony, he may hear me talking about him and roll around here and peek. I can't get him in front of the camera though. So that's what they do. They make jokes.
Yes. So we were at the conference and the workshop, and he was an eager participant. Now he wouldn't sit at the front. He blended in the crowd. He said that was his position. That was where he was supposed to be in the crowd. So he was going to give his information from the crowd.
They are hilarious.
So whatever the conversation was or the topic was, we gave the example of, me being okay with the fact that we weren't married. And so, sent shock value through the crowd. And sure. I was good. And they was like, that's not normal. And I was like, but I was really good. We had been shacking for 7.5 years. And he was like, enough is enough. And I was like, for real? You mean we got to get married? And he was like, yeah, we either get married or go our separate ways. And I was like, oh. And he was like, you have to make a decision by the end of the month. This was like mid-January. And so I was like, so we got to be married by the end of the month. And he was like, yep. So our anniversary is January 31st.
You weren't playing around, were you?
I was like,
well, I held down to the last minute.
I held down to the last minute because I'm like, I don't know about this marriage thing. And again, it's because of the dysfunction that you're surrounded by, and you don't have a good picture of, what marriage is supposed to look like. And, you can be happy in marriage and things. So I didn't want to get married to get divorced. So that was my mindset before even trying to enter and to a marriage. But pretty much nothing has changed. Sometimes not even my last name. Because nobody really knows sometimes what my last name is, and unless they ask.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. What I found interesting and intriguing about what you said is he was the one like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me the ultimatum. Either we're going to do this or we're not.
He did.
And we were satisfied, and which is totally opposite of the stereotype most of us have, because historically, what we've known, it's been the other way around. As a matter of fact, the thing we used to say is, why buy the cow if you can have the milk for free? And that whole statement was really more inferring against the woman, because we always was taught the woman is the one who loses out when you live together and you don't marry. And there is truth to that. Really, both people lose out. But from a historical point of view, it was more in line with what the woman was going to lose by not given that opportunity for marriage. And if you start operating like a wife, and what they call it wifey now, you may never have that opportunity to become a wife if you settle for that. And you're probably one of the first people in our age group that I've met who actually was not interested in getting married. It was him that was like, either or.
And we were having this same conversation. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. And he was like, do you think we would still be shacking if I hadn't threatened you?
Like,
And I said, well, probably not, but I would have, stuck it out a couple of more years before I finally said I do. Yeah.
how many years was it gonna take?
I don't know. The ring had sat in the safe deposit box for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I would go to, the safe deposit box every now and then and, look at it and say, it's still here. Lock the box back and go home.
So so you even had put it up for safekeeping. So like that was kind of, and as I'm hearing you say that, I'm thinking about what the things that we put in a safe deposit box, right? It's something of value. Like you don't just put anything in a safe deposit box. Did you ever think to yourself, like, why am I doing this?
Nope. That was the farthest thing from my mind.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Down in the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like,
and even not funny, but funnier. My mom's a Jehovah's Witness, so she was like, "You out here with these bastard babies?" And I was like, "I know who my kid's daddy is." And so she was like, "But y'all ain't married." So I caught heat. I was like, "Well, we good,"
So how in all of that, how did that? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I heard.
Oh no, you're fine.
In all of that, how did that affect your mental health and how you provided services to people? I'm curious.
It did not. In all honesty, I was out of the church anyway. I only got back in the church in 2013. Maybe 2012, 2013. So I had been without religion for like 14 years. I would go to church for funerals, family. Well, let me tell you that I didn't go to many funerals because that was one thing that I booked against too. So I would go for family reunions and weddings and immediate family members' funerals.
Okay.
So other than that, I did not go to church.
Or did your mom convert to that?
She converted. We were actually Baptist first, and then middle school, she became a Jehovah's Witness. And it's interesting because I never asked her story until I wrote the first book, Authentic Tales of 7 Women, and I asked her to co-author, and that's when I got her story of how she became a Jehovah's Witness. And it was pretty much to put it in a nutshell. She had asked questions growing up about spirituality, all questions she had about the Bible. Nobody would answer these questions, or they would tell her, "Oh, you don't need to know about that. That's not that's a topic for another day." So she had tried out a variety of religions, Baptist, Catholic, I think there were some others that she tried as well. But when I was coherent of religion, I got baptized as a Baptist. So
so did I.
I never got baptized. She got baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, and I never did. Her siblings, all of her siblings except one are Jehovah's Witnesses. My grandma is not. So it's always an interesting time to watch them interact with each other. So, but we get along good. I actually attend a non-denominational church, and she and my pastor have great dialogue all the time. They actually enjoy communicating with one another. And so I find that amusing because she's never done that before, which kind of further solidifies for me I'm in the right place. I'm learning, and some of the things that they can talk about are congruent to each other. So that kind of sets aside some peace. But then as I began to become more spiritual, I'm not going to say religious, but spiritual, I often began to wonder, what was I telling people in certain aspects of their life as it related to some of the stuff that they were going through? Because now I throw in a conversation, what about your faith? Do you have a spiritual relationship? What about your higher power? So I kind of wish I could rewind sometime to see exactly what I was saying then versus now. Because, when we were in the social work field, there were certain things you didn't discuss.
Exactly.
Politics and religion were the main two.
Exactly.
And anytime a client brought that up, you were supposed to change the topic.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my thought process. And I know I said it a couple of times, oh, those are two things we don't discuss in therapy. Let's move on.
Yeah. Which is,
but those are the two things that plague people the most. So,
exactly. I deal with it's, and it's funny you mentioned that, because there's been quite a few people since I've been doing IOP that has trauma related to religion. Very strict, when they grew up in very strict religious homes. I had one even mention that a simple thing as, hi Jeanette and Willie and Ursula, she just hopped on. One of them was telling me that she was married and feeling guilty about being intimate with her husband. She grew up Mennonite, and her home was just so strict that even though she's done her substance abuse and all of the things that she should not have done, obviously she's been doing it, but now she's married and don't know how to have a healthy intimacy with her spouse because of all that religion. So it's interesting that the very things that we were taught that you just don't discuss has impacted mental health for so many people over the years. You know, we have questions, and even as you're sharing even about your mom and her becoming a Jehovah's Witness, I found that over the years with some of the interactions I've had, and in particular out here on the West Coast, being a Mormon is huge out this way. I went to a 7-day Adventist elementary school. My daughter-in-law grew up 7-day Adventist, and some of the dialogue that she and I had with a lot of the teachings, like what you were talking about, how they just wouldn't answer questions. And I've just found that people have a tendency to over spiritualize things that they don't understand themselves. Right. They'll do one of two things. They'll either pretend it doesn't exist to get you off of it, or they'll over spiritualize it because they really don't have an explanation. So in your practice now that you have found common ground and now you're more spiritual and growing in the things of God, I heard you say how you're questioning, maybe wondering like, wow, did I like maybe say some things to people I probably shouldn't have, just not knowing it was something that they needed to be able to address. How do you manage that now in your private practice? I know you said you're asking them, you know, what's their faith walk like? How is this really, how have you integrated your spiritual life with your professional life? And how do you do that when someone is totally not a believer? How are you reaching them?
Well, I had an atheist yesterday. That was that was interesting. He's not my first atheist, but he was very, very animated. Very animated.
Wow, Choice grew up. I'm sorry.
And so
okay.
As part of my intake process, I asked, do they have a spiritual preference? So that kind of gives me information right off the very beginning as to, what I can and cannot say. And if they say Christian, then, is there a particular religion you're associated with? And then they say no, Christian. So, okay, I can use a broader context versus, let me steer over here. And then even, with the atheist, I always ask, what drove you to becoming an atheist? Or, what's your reasoning for not having a higher power or believing in a higher power? And some of the ones in the past, they're upset with God because their family member died, or, they were abused and God didn't save them. And, so it's been a variety of things. And even yesterday, the individual was like, well, you're born atheist. So, you're taught these things. And I said, well, that's an interesting concept, because we all know that you're born and you have to learn things. But in his mind, he was born an atheist. And because he was never taught spirituality or religion, he just continued to believe in nothing. He said believing in a higher power was ludicrous. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he was like, but I find that people who are Christian have it better because they have a support group and they have people that can pray for them. And so I in turn said, I can pray for you as well. He said, but I'm not a believer. I said, but the prayers of believers are so strong that we can get prayers through even for unbelievers like you. And he just kind of looked at me. And I was like, so I'm going to pray for you anyway. But I just meet them where they are. I'm not judgmental. And if it's something that I can ask about a faith walk, because some of them don't even have a faith walk. And then I use myself as an example. I didn't have one either. Let me tell you how I developed one. You know, God knocked me down on my knees and they were scarred up and bloody and bleeding. And I said, okay, they said this is what this looks like. So I'm trusting and believing. You know, they said ask and you shall receive. Okay, God, I'm asking because I ain't got no other way to turn. You had a whole attitude about it. I ain't got nowhere else to go now. You done took everything from me. Only thing I could do is depend on you. So I'm coming to you, and you said do what you said you're gonna do. And so, you know, I sat and stewed in it a while, and pretty much by the end of that week, what he said he was gonna do, he had done. So I was like, oh, so this is how this works. And so I often use myself as an example if I'm trying to make a point that can correlate with, you know, something that someone is either experiencing or, you know, have experienced. And it helps because say, oh, okay, you human too. So you've had stuff happen too. And I'm so transparent that it shocks most people that come into the office, but I can tell my story better than you can. So you don't have to hear it from the streets because I'm going to tell it to you in the office. Exactly. And then you can realize that I'm not going to judge you because I've had some of, you know, the same situations either occur to me or to family members. So let's get to work. Let's get you healed. And that's kind of the approach that I take. And it's been beneficial.
Yeah. And I think that's powerful too, because one thing I'm open about is the fact that I was a pastor. So my clients know that. So, you know, and I had one who came in that was an atheist because she had dealt with a lot of religious stuff, you know, in her own family of origin and acceptance and different things. And I, especially, you know, when you're dealing with quite a few people who may have issues with their sexuality and different things. And one of the things that I've been really open to is making sure that it's a safe place for everybody. And like this one particular one, she was struggling because of the religious persecution she had dealt with. And it was interesting that the two other people, because she had basically assumed that because of her experience and because I was a pastor, that I was going to beat her over the head with Jesus, which I never did that. And the other two who came in, they won't have nothing to do with religion anymore because of their upbringing. They are the ones who came to my defense. And they were like, oh no, she's not like the other, you know, they put us in these, you know, in these boxes, right? And I understand why, because unfortunately, we in the body of Christ have not done the best job with being open to differences. We've been very judgmental, very critical of anyone who's not like us. And we're not inviting. I mean, and if the church is supposed to be a hospital, you know, at the emergency room, you know, you don't get to decide who you treat. Right. You know, if they come in the door, everyone gets triaged, and based on their symptoms, it determines the treatment plan, whether they get admitted, you know, however the decision is. But it's not based on whether I like you or not, or whether even if you don't even agree with me, you still have the option to choose. And I think here in our world anyway, we're not just open to giving people an option. And hearing you say higher power, I think is great, because, you know, the religious people like, well, no, there is no higher power. It's Jesus and Jesus only. But we have to get to a place where you can meet a person where they are, where you can even have a conversation with them, because talking about it is not going to make change.
Right.
But being about it is what opens the door. Here you had a whole conversation with a person who's an atheist,
Mm-hmm.
and that person didn't feel like I can't come here because I don't have the same beliefs.
Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, we have more in common than we don't.
Right.
Without
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation and giving a person an opportunity to share, you never know that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can provide a service for him. He doesn't have to profess Jesus as his Lord and personal Savior. Here you offered prayer, and he's probably never thought that a prayer could even work for him because he don't believe in the same God that we talk about. He doesn't even know that God. It's not even about believing. He doesn't know him.
Right.
And you may be the closest that he ever gets to it in a therapy situation. Like, who knew? And so, wow, I can't believe it's 8:30 already. We got to talking about Jesus and they blowing up in the comments. Like real quick, Choice commented, Mo is on just right when we're going out. Her husband used to be a Jehovah's Witness. When they started dating, he was a witness. I didn't know that, Mo. I didn't remember that. Carmen says her baby brother is atheist. He's extremely interesting when it comes to spiritual dialogue, just very intellectual. Pastor Deborah said, Lord, help us to meet people where they are. And Choice said, thank you, because she always wanted to know how to respond to someone who's an atheist. That's not something we really get taught in the body of Christ, and we really need to work on that. And then Choice said, I know chaplains have to meet people where they are. She used to tell her uncle to stop preaching to her when she was a witness.
Okay.
She said she had been a Jehovah's Witness as well. And have normal conversations. She said he's a Jehovah's Witness. Mm-hmm. And then Carmen says she know people who still believe in pagan gods, so they have to meet them where they are and just listen. And real quick before we go, that's interesting because out west, I ran into a bunch of people who were Wiccan. Mm-hmm. That wasn't something, growing up in the South, I mean, we knew witchcraft exists, but not in the form like I've encountered it here. Out west. Wiccan is one of those things. Like it's pretty prominent here. You have people who they just don't believe what we believe in, but you still have to figure out ways to engage them and meet their needs. So I'm gonna have to reschedule to have you come on because this whole piece, I didn't know we were gonna get into this. But I'm curious to know how, I think the audience too would love to know strategies of how we can meet people. You're not a therapist and you don't have to be a licensed therapist to be able to provide support and care to people, because they're going to purview is going to happen in all parts of your life. It happens in our churches. And because you're doing that integrated piece, I'd like to have you come back on so we can have further discussion, because I didn't know that you had Jehovah's Witnesses in your home. And your family, that's a whole nother dynamic. And how to deal with that. And because we're encountering it. I mean, how do you provide treatment to someone who may be a Jehovah's Witness, and how do you meet their needs and help them find get their needs met? So
now, I've had Jehovah's Witnesses as clients as well. So it's you meet them where they are, as long as they're open to hearing and changing the situation or the ailment or the whatever it is that they're going through and dealing with. It's just like any other religious person.
True.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes we think we're so different and we may have more in common than we do. All right.
But I'm gonna take you out on a great note, and I think you'll find this interesting. And it's always funny, like you say, how these conversations go full circle. Years ago, let me see, my son's 14. My husband got into a bad motorcycle accident, and I was at work and finally got the message that, hey, he's been in an accident. And so when I got to the hospital, he head busted open, you can see the blood pumping up and down in his forehead. Wow. Get down to the white meat. I think his hand was broke, ankle was broke, just in a bad condition, had amnesia, didn't know who I was. And so his doctor was an atheist.
Wow.
And in treating him, he asked him something. I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, but he said something about God. And he told him, he was like, for you to survive an accident such as this, there has to be a God. And so he started going to church. And before he died, I think he ended up being a deacon in the church. He was a little short white man, just, you know, just very, very different. But because of his interaction with him and whatever that conversation was, it turned his life around. And then he, like I say, ended up becoming a deacon in the church. So like you say, your interactions with someone may change their unbelief.
You never know. And what seemed like to be the worst day of you guys' life,
right,
ended up being the transition for someone else's.
For someone else.
God will use anything. That's that scripture that's talking about he takes something and use it for his good. Right. Wow, what an impact. Don't you guys love Dr. D? Yes, we do. We love Dr. D. We need to do something with this religion and mental health. I would really like for us to dig into that a little bit deeper, because there are some elements, you know, now that people are commenting, we're impacted by people's beliefs or non-beliefs. You got whole families that aren't speaking to each other because now someone's a witness and the other people aren't. And they're not allowed to engage with their family, you know, and it creates a lot. I've heard lots of things over the years with that. So,
and that's not true. So we'll definitely have to engage in that.
Because people think
twisted
that
components to it, but not in that capacity.
Exactly. But you know, there are people who do believe that though. Right. Yeah. On both accords, they believe that there has to be separation. So I'd like for us to regather and talk about some of that. So I'll text you. Well, you text me and let me know what Tuesday you can. And then we'll kind of finish this discussion, because we're having good dialogue and I think people are really enjoying and benefiting from it. On that note, thank you, Dr. Lady Rain, for gracing us a few minutes. But tonight we have to go because it's late. And I love you guys. Next week, we will be talking about, I think it's next week, we'll be talking about grief. I've got Apostle Stephen Gardner coming on, and he's going to be talking about grief. For those of you all who went to Word of Abundant Life with us, he came and talked to our church about it before. And I just felt like it's time, because there's people dealing with a lot of grief and loss and different things. And he's going to come on and share with us next week about grief. So on that note, thank you, Dr. D. God bless you, your ministry and your business and your marriage ministry and everything else that God is doing in your life. Thank you, Dr. Lady Rain. Remember, guys, if you want to be a part of what's going on here, you want your own show, or you know someone who needs their own show, reach out to me or Dr. Lady Rain, and we can make that happen. Beautiful shows on here on the Stella nominated award. Yes, she's been nominated. Well, I'm speaking it into existence. She's being nominated again this year at the Stella. Yes, we will be at the Stella Awards July 16th in Atlanta. So we want to take you guys with us. So let's make this happen. So when it's time to vote, we're going to vote, because Dr. Lady Rain needs that award, right?
Yes.
Amen. So I love you guys. Love you, Dr. D. Love you all, the guests. You guys keep sharing, and I'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
You are tuned in to that praisey station, praise.fm, where we get our praise on, 24 hours.